City's nonprofit voice. We're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them, and the intersection of nonprofits and profits in our community. Casey Cares is proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with a four-letter word in our world, and that's hate. And no one knows that better than Mindy Corporan, whose family was rocked by ultimate hate when her son and her father and Terry Lamano were killed by a white supremacist right here in Kansas City, suburban Overland Park in 2014. But rather than wallow and sit in that hate, Mindy and a team of dedicated volunteers has moved forward and is trying to make a change in our world through the Faith Always Wins Foundation and its flagship event, 7 days, Make a Ripple, Change the World. Mindy, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. Thanks for having me on Casey Cares.
Well, in case somebody has been living in under a rock, I should say, not to insult them, share with us, what is the Faith Always Wins Foundation?
Thank you. Well, the Faith Always Wins Foundation was created in 2015. It's a 501c3, so we operate as a nonprofit. And we named it a foundation because the family's intent when we opened it to house funds that were coming in right after the murders of my dad and Reed and Terry Lamano. But when funds were coming in on behalf of my dad and Reed, we wanted them to have a safe place to live. And so we were receiving those. So we opened it, and our intention was then and still is to an extent. And the reason we named it a foundation, I'm circling back to why we named it a foundation, is that we do want to give back to the community and to performing arts and to medical initiatives. So there's an underlying plan for the board of directors of the foundation to give funds that are raised back into the community and back to people, or forward to people in medical initiatives and performing arts. The Faith Always Wins Foundation mission is to promote dialogue for the betterment of our world through kindness, faith, and healing. And the foundation itself created, along with many community members and our board of directors and many, many volunteers, 7 days, Make a Ripple, Change the World. And this is an experience that we have. It's under our kindness pillar. And that's like our big activity. So some places have galas, and some foundations or nonprofits will have a big luncheon or an auction. And our big event right now is an annual event, is called 7 days, Make a Ripple, Change the World.
I think some of our audience would just be amazed that you and your family had the fortitude, the foresight to do something like this. How did you put it all together? I mean, here you're dealing on one hand with immense, unimaginable grief. And on the other, you're saying, let's get back to the community. So how did that simultaneously happen?
Well, thank you. I appreciate your thoughts on that. It was and still is very difficult to live without my dad and Reet. And we did grieve immensely at the time. It's a very physical grief process when someone loses a family member. So it's not just emotional or mental, it's extremely physical, and it was very debilitating. Well, we didn't do it alone, but your words were really, why did we think about giving back to the community? And I'll tell you what came to mind very quickly on a couple of different fronts. The community gave back to us so fast. So people surrounded us with prayers, with cards, with food, with actions of love. They left flowers on our door. They left kindness rocks. I got, books, all kinds of books about grief. I mean, people just gave and gave and gave. And so in that instance, sure, we can send thank you cards, but it also seemed like something to do to give back to the community is to share, kindness with people back to them. But the lesson that we felt like needed to be said, and I wanted to say shouted. So the lesson we wanted to shout was can't we all do acts of kindness for 7 days in a row? And the 7 days in a row came from my mom. So when we said we want to commemorate the anniversary of the shooting, because we know it's going to be commemorated. It happened to, I know it happened to our family, but it happened to all of us. And we wanted to commemorate that and to be able to learn from it. I mean, isn't that what we as humans should do, is when things happen to us, upon us, with us, for us, we learn from them, good, bad, and indifferent. We learn from them. And so what we wanted to do was educate people about different faiths and educate people in a way that was a kind process. And so Reet and Dad and Terry were murdered on Palm Sunday. And as a Christian, that's a very important day leading up to Easter. Well, Easter is 7 days later. So there's a theme here of 7 days. So there's Palm Sunday, 7 days later is Easter. Someone named God made the world in 7 days. And the Abrahamic faiths all know that, read that. It's in Genesis. It's in the very first book of the Bible, the Torah. The message is also in the Quran. So these are the Abrahamic faiths: Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And so this theme of 7 days, and can't people be kind for 7 days? And can't we help teach people about kindness? And so it all wraps in together to promote dialogue. And dialogue is conversation. And frequently we aren't having real live conversations. I'm so thankful that we are with this virtual, that we can still have live conversations. Frequently we are tweeting or Facebooking or emailing, and we're not having live conversations and back and forth. And so 7 days was created, Faith Always Wins was created with the intent to foster dialogue around different faiths, around faiths in general, I say different faiths, but all faiths, so that we can educate one another and not be fearful. Because if we're fearful, then that leads to hate. And if we fear and we are hate, and we even ourselves might not feel loved, it just goes badly. And that is what happened, is it went very badly, and it exploded on our family. And we don't want that to happen to any other families. While it has, we continue to walk forward with that idea of helping people understand kindness through our actions of interfaith understanding.
So I have to throw at you, the question is, there are a lot of people who don't have a, defined faith. There are people who don't believe in God or an entity. How do they fall under your umbrella? Is there room in the tent, so to speak?
Yes, so they fall under, we all want clean water. We all have faith in humanity. Well, I shouldn't say we all have faith in humanity, but could you have faith in humanity? Could you have faith that you have the clean water? Could you have faith that your chicken that you're about to eat isn't raw? Just the concept of trust. So it's the concept of trusting something that you might not see, that you might not typically see. So really, this is very random because you said that. So the other morning, the sun was rising and I was watching it, but there was a cloud in front of it. And I knew the sun was rising. I trusted it. I had faith that the sun was rising, but I couldn't see it. It was behind the cloud. It was a huge cloud. It was behind the cloud, but I had faith in that. And so when we're talking about people who don't believe in a deity or a God, and they just go about their lives, do they have trust and faith in their own family? Do they have faith in themselves? Do they have faith in someone else? And so that leads to, if that's how you feel, do you offer kindness to other people? I met a friend years ago who said he was agnostic. And all of his actions to me, all of his actions toward our family, all of his actions toward other people that I saw, to me, I said, you seem very Christian-like to me. Or maybe you seem very Jewish to me. And he said, no, I don't believe in that. But yet he was super kind and nice. And anyone, looking at him from a faith perspective would have thought he might be following a faith. He was agnostic, and he can be very kind. I mean, just because you don't believe in God or a God or other gods doesn't mean that you also can't be kind to one another as a human. And that is how anyone would fall into our big tent of kindness.
So you get this tenacity, you get this strength, you form this foundation? Since our audience is nonprofits and supporters of nonprofits, can you share what that journey was like to create an entity? And we have to share with our audience, you came from a financial background. So I'm wondering, as you did this, what role that played and how that might have helped you get this up and going.
Yeah, this question kind of falls under what do you wish you had done differently? So I should have slowed down. I am a fast mover. I don't have a lot of patience for things. I feel like if I know just enough, I will grab it and go. And, and that's just who I am. And I know that about myself. I could have been and probably should have been more patient in what is the foundation going to do and training myself. But as you mentioned, I was in wealth management. At the time of the murders, I was the CEO of a wealth management firm, Corporan Wealth Management. And I operated there as the CEO for another 3 years. So I left Corporan Wealth Management in 2018. The murders happened in 2014. The foundation was formed in 2015. So for 3 years, I oversaw the foundation with the board of directors, very much part-time, very, as part-time as possible. And then in middle of 2018, I really plunged into it because I left my role as the CEO and then I had more time to commit to it. I should have taken some classes. What does it mean to run a foundation? And I have learned from many people. One local source is Nonprofit Connect. They have been a fantastic source. You personally, Ruth, have been a really wonderful resource for us. I still need to learn more. I know you can always learn about something every single day, and I enjoy learning and I enjoy education. So what I did is I did use the resources that I had, and I'm very familiar with the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, and I reached out to them I think within the first week or two after Dad and Reed's deaths. But again, I'll tell you, money was coming in, and it wasn't to a GoFundMe. I know a lot of people sometimes will create a GoFundMe. We didn't create a GoFundMe, but checks were coming in to either the funeral home, the Church of the Resurrection, the Jewish Community Center. People didn't know how to send it directly to our family, but they were sending it. And we wanted that money to go into the foundation. And so that was the onus at the time for opening the foundation, to have a place for those funds to go. And then that was the seed money that started the Faith Always Wins Foundation, and then 7 Days Make a Ripple Change the World. So using your resources, using your skills. I remember telling Pastor Adam Hamilton, he's a senior pastor at Church of the Resurrection. I remember telling him probably in about 6 or 7 months after Dad and Reed had passed, he even said, "How is it that you're working on these things?" And I said, if they had been killed by a drunk driver, my energy would be focused on combating drunk driving. If they had been killed in a fire that shouldn't have happened or something, or what, the fact that they were murdered by a white supremacist is where I took my lead to say, this is where I want to focus. And then I gathered resources. I gathered attorneys that I knew. I gathered the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation. I gathered, people around me that I knew from my history in wealth management. And so if someone was listening to this and said, I don't have those people around me, I really would direct them to other nonprofits, to call and ask questions. And then, because people want to share their best practices, and I asked others, please share with me your best practices. And then the Community Foundation and Nonprofit Connect have been fantastic resources.
We're going to take a quick break, but after this, we're going to talk to Mindy a little bit about how now the foundation is really in action, spreading kindness. Welcome back to KC Cares. Our guest is Mindy Corporan, who is co-founder of the Faith Always Wins Foundation and its 7 Days experience. Now that we're 7 years. So it's our 7 years of 7 days. And I do have to be honest to the audience. I have the privilege of working with Mindy and many others to do this. So I have that kind of inside look, but I want to be able to share with others, the enormity of doing what you're doing. So we have the foundation umbrella, and you have this flagship event that's kindness and faith oriented in some ways because of the dialogue. How has that changed from year one to now rolling into this year, and then we'll talk about the P word, the pandemic.
Okay, I was like, what's the P word? I was thinking, what in 7 days has a P in it? I was trying to think what that was.
Well, it just kind of hangs over everybody's world.
The pandemic, yes. Okay, so year one. So year one was very focused on kindness. And let me tell you, I felt like it should be focused on interfaith. And we had one activity that was interfaith related our first year. We had a panel of people from different faiths. And it was, and I remember there were 80 people in the audience. I think 80 people total came to that activity. And it was great. It was magnificent. But at the end of all the 7 days, and the other 6 were all about kindness, I felt like I hadn't done what I was being asked to do. So I felt like I was being asked by God to pull our faiths together, to pull people together. That was like a mantra that came to me. Pull my people together, bring my people together. And so I was like, okay, what does that look like? And the first year, it was mostly about kindness, but we did have one interfaith event. And then in the next year, I felt very strongly, and I worked on and asked our committee to create such events and experiences such that at every opportune time, we could have people of different faith present. And we call them the faith tables. And so we've had a few years in a row where we had Hinduism, Buddhism, an atheist, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all present in a room at the same time, available for people to ask questions of them and to have conversations. And that has really been a joy to foster that conversation between those. We also, along the way, Ruth, Faith Always Wins Foundation joined Kansas City Interfaith Youth Alliance, and we had a youth program that was an interfaith youth program. So we've really dived very deeply into the work of interfaith along the way. But 7 days, and I say but, so I should say and 7 days does grab a lot of people because of the acts of kindness. So parents get involved, students, businesses get involved. There are great team building events. And so the kindness umbrella is a gentler umbrella. It's a less personal umbrella to say, everyone can be kind. You can be kind and not talk about your faith. You can be kind and not have to mention that, you're Jewish or that you're Muslim or that you're agnostic. And so we can be kind in those situations. And I personally still try to weave in as interfaith conversations, because I think in a moment of when you're in a good conversation with someone and you're being kind and they're being kind and you're being friendly, what a great opportunity to say, share with me about your faith. I'd like to share with you about my faith. And it's not to proselytize, and it never has been to proselytize. I always have told parents of students that are involved with us, we are not asking your Jewish, boy or girl to become Muslim or even to consider that. What we're asking is to understand and respect one another and, what makes us who we are. And for many of us, our faith is part of who we are. It's part of our value system. So those are some of the things that have happened. Along the way, we hired one employee. We have several people on contract, but we hired one employee, and her name is Jill Anderson. And she now runs 7 days. She's the director of 7 days. It is a fantastic activity. And she also implemented our Kindness Youth Leadership Team. So I just have to mention that it is such a focus of ours to promote youth and their education. They walk alongside an adult activity director, either an event person or even someone like you. You run our PR and you have a student associated with you. So you are an adult mentor. Our photographer, Vivian, she's an adult mentor to a youth. Hannah, our social media adult, she's a mentor to youth. And so students apply for this. They get to help plan events. They get to really be part of it, be hands-on. They get to be interviewed, conduct interviews with adults. It's a really great mentoring opportunity. So I would say what's changed along the way is I've been open to other people's ideas. I always feel like I try to do that. And our board is open to that as well. But our path is promoting dialogue for the betterment of our world through kindness, faith, and healing. And Jill Anderson and our committee have done a fantastic job at looking at that mission and saying, what is it that we can do inside of 7 days that does that all along the way? And I think that we're doing that. Regarding the pandemic, last year in 2020, because we had to pivot so quickly, we did it. We went from everything being in person to everything being virtual in 2020. We're doing that again, but let me tell you, our reach is phenomenal. And I know that COVID has been very bad and difficult for so many people. You and your family included, you've been affected quite a bit. And other people have lost people in the pandemic. And just like Dad and Reed and Terry being murdered, I have to say to myself, okay, what can we do from this that can be good? What can we take from this and learn from this and make something good happen? And what's good that's happened from the pandemic is virtual connection, is that we've been able to connect with people in Canada, in Spain, in Europe, all around the United States. And so those are some of those pieces that I would put together on how we've changed from 2015 to now in 2021.
So you've done the pandemic pivot. You've embraced the virtual world. We have to tell our audience this year, 2021's 7 days are not 7 days in a row this year.
Right.
April 13th through 25th. But it's really not April 13th through 25th, is it? Because you've got the virtual tool. So share a little bit about what that's going to mean for the audience in case they're listening to this on April 29th and go, oh my gosh, did I miss it?
And they think they missed the whole thing. So we're using a YouTube channel. We're using Facebook. We're using live stream sometimes, but everything that we're doing is recorded. Some of our activities are pre-recorded, and there'll be a completely pre-recorded activity that will be shown as a premiere on YouTube. So for instance, April 13th, Love Day is completely pre-recorded and it will be a premiere. And so we will all be watching it, and people who've registered will be watching it. We'll be watching it all together, but it's all been pre-recorded and pieced together. But then you go to like Go Day is going to be a live Zoom opportunity. And again, you need to register. And if you've missed it, you're going to watch the video later. But if you haven't registered for it, Go Day is going to be our interfaith panel. And so we're using different platforms. I'm going to skip all the way to the kindness walk, which is on April 25th. And everyone can walk virtually from wherever they are. But what I felt like, and I'm taking on the responsibility, is creating a live stream throughout the day. And we're going to have, I'm going to interview walkers at the top of every hour for about 5 to 15 minutes. I'm going to interview people from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I think that will just be so fun for people to pop on and see who's walking where, why are they walking? What is their onward? So our very last activity is called Onward, and it's about finding your onward. And so just as a summary, what that means to me is faith always wins, and 7 days and a few other things that I've created have been my onward. And each of us have something that affects us in life, and we have to find something to get us out of bed, get us out of the house, get us, back into community again. Because as humans, we need community. We need one another. We need interaction. And so that's what Onward is to me. Now, let me tell you, so the last 6 years, all of our 7 days events have been 7 days in a row. And out of sheer exhaustion from 2020, we took a look at how could we do this differently and still make a big impact. And we decided to keep all 7 days in April, but as you pointed out, they're not all in a row. They're on different days in the month of April. They do start on April 13th, which is the day of the shooting. So Love Day is April 13th. And then they dot a few different days throughout the weeks until they get to April 25th, which is Onward. And I don't know what we're going to do yet for 2022. We're going to consider making even a different change. And so I'll wait until we have our retreat and see what that looks like. But to answer your question about if someone hears your message that you're giving in this podcast on, late April or May, they can click on our YouTube channel. They can go to YouTube Give 7 Days, and they can watch videos for 2020, and they can watch videos for 2021, and then they can come to our website and they can still get involved and be active in our year-round activities.
Well, I know we only have a few minutes left together, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about your latest Onward. But people can go to, again, give7days.org, find out about activities, find out where to watch. Be kind more than 7 days. I don't think it's limited. It's just calling attention. But your Onward came to fruition this year in one activity, in that you've written a book. Why the book quickly, and what does that do in furthering the mission, I guess, of the nonprofit?
Yeah, I started journaling. Let me start with that. So people have asked, when did I start writing the book? I started journaling within the week after my dad and we were murdered. I have journal notes about a week after, and then I journaled over the first 4 years fairly consistently. I have books of journals. And several people had said it'd be really great if you could put this down, if you could write the story. And so I felt compelled to write the story, but my struggle with completing it was, it's a memoir, but I'm still living. And I wasn't sure how to end it. And the ending came to me, like how to pull it together, how to wrap it together, and it be a message that I could kind of package and hand to someone and say, listen, this is still happening. This happened and it's still happening. Was in May of 2020. It was Reet's 21st birthday, and I wanted to do something really special for his 21st birthday, even though he's in heaven. And so I pulled together 8 Black women and 8 white women, and we had a conversation. And all of this stemmed from me personally seeing Ahmaud Arbery's murder and seeing the video of that happening. And then we had our meeting on May 21st, and then only a few days later, George Floyd lost his life, and racial tensions and all of that happened during the summer, and which was healthy and unhealthy. It's unhealthy that it's been happening, but it was healthy that it raised awareness and we were having more conversation. And all of a sudden, I felt like this is where the book needs to wrap together, because so many people don't realize that white supremacy is happening. And people might throw out words like, oh, the Proud Boys this or the alt-right that, but it's not touching me. It's not a problem for me. Well, it is a problem for you. It's a problem for everyone. If you disagree at all with white supremacy and people putting down people of color, then it does affect you. And if we choose to sit by and do nothing about it and say nothing about it, then it will continue to fester. And that's what happened. In our case, the shooter was allowed to continue to fester and spew his hate, so much so that he felt he was in the right by murdering people. And most of us, most of humanity, think that that is wrong. But if we sit quietly and say, well, it's not affecting me, and that's the same thing with racism. If I say, well, I'm a white person, and because Black people are experiencing racism, that's not affecting me. That is not accurate at all. It affects all of us. We are all in this earth together. And that's how I was able to wrap the book together. And it was a monumental task to do. It was very important to me that I got to get it done before 7 days, so that it can all be promoted together. And one of my board members, Mike Miller, has said for the last 3 years, if you can get your book done, I think it will be really helpful to promote the foundation too. So that's where in the last chapter, I talk about everything that's going on that people can join or know about, so they can, know about Faith Always Wins. They can know about 7 days. They can know about a for-profit work that I'm doing called Workplace Healing. They can read the book and take action on their own. This is part of my Onward, and I think anyone who feels compelled to find an Onward and take an action, it helps you heal. And that's what is important to me, is for us to be in a healing process all the time.
It's the Faith Always Wins Foundation. It's the 7 days experience. Mindy's book is available on her website, mindycorporan.com, or you can find it on Give 7 Days somewhere. Cover shot. Mindy, thank you. Sharing this journey, one from pain to promise and pandemic pivot. And it's so great. And thank you for listening to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice We're produced by Charitable Communications, and we're proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation. If you'd like to be a guest like Mindy on KC Cares or underwriting opportunities to support what we're doing, visit kccaresonline.org and spread the love. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and on Instagram at KC Cares Online, and catch us on ESPN 1510 AM and 94.5 FM Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Thank you for listening and watching KC Cares.